Right now, sitting is destroying your brain, even if you exercise every day. Scientists have found that 10 hours of sitting dramatically increases your risk for dementia. Just think about that, 10 hours. And oftentimes, when we evaluate our life, we spend a bulk of the time in the digital age doing what? Seated. And going to the gym, mind you, is not going to fix it, as I'm going to show you. It doesn't undo the damage. But here's the plot twist. Your muscles actually don't make you fit. Yes, let me say that again. Your muscles are not what's making you fit. Your brain is. I've been trying to emphasize this for a while. The secret to longevity is the brain. The brain really from a top down controls everything. If the brain were to go, your muscles would be useless. So the key here is your brain. Researchers have discovered neurons that are literally programming your body to build endurance, fitness in a sense. Not your heart, not your lungs, your brain. And oftentimes when we think about endurance, we think about everything other than the brain. And today I'm going to show you how movement is going to rewire your brain, grow new neurons, reverse memory loss, and supercharge your learning. Let's get to it. And today, again, it's a very important video. Highly recommend that you watch it till the end. And if you do like it, then please give it a thumbs up, like it, subscribe, and share it with somebody you think may benefit. Remember, the key here is the focus on the brain. And what if I told you that your muscles aren't making you fit, but your brain is? And so let's look at how your brain is programming your body to endurance from the inside out, in a sense. And that's really just the beginning, as we're going to see. Your brain is programming you to get fitter if you establish the right habits. And I've talked about this in other videos. I've mentioned before that if I wanted a state of blissfulness, peace, etc., whatever I want, I must create, I must nurture, because the mind converts the thought, the intention into chemistry. And that chemistry, whether it's a brain factor, whether it's a neuromodulator, a neurochemical, a hormone, it's converting it into signals that are going to impact your body in a holistic fashion. And the movement that trains your brain is holistic, more than just mindless repetitive movement, as we'll see. So researchers in UT Southwestern found that neurons in the ventromedial hypothalamus, it's a region that is directly programming the body to boost endurance and response to exercise. So your brain itself can program your body for endurance. What does this mean? This brain kind of fitness first approach is the plot twist. You could develop treatments that reproduce the neurochemical effect that exercise would have in the brain. You reproduce it chemically and, in a sense, induce the same benefits that exercise would. And this is obviously very relevant to people in the digital age that move less. And I'm going to suggest what you should try instead to do, as well as for people with limited mobility, maybe somebody who had an accident or a stroke and is in recovery or therapy and they're lying around a lot. The brain, in a sense, is atrophying as well, not just the muscles. We often think of the muscles atrophying because of lack of use. The brain as well, it needs to be challenged. It needs to be stimulated in a specific way. One way in which your brain does this is through different factors. And I've talked about BDNF before, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as your brain's Miracle-Gro, that fertilizer that you would add to your lawn to make it look really green and beautiful. That's kind of what BDNF does. BDNF is increased after exercise. And so what will BDNF do? It's going to stimulate neurogenesis. Yes, you can create new neurons. Not just in the hippocampus, but that hippocampus is one of the main areas that have been researched. It's your memory center. It's going to help to strengthen connections as well. Such that if I learn something, I can strengthen that connection to remember it better. In a way, when somebody has a traumatic experience, if intervened at the right time, doctors can give a sort of kind of, not an anesthetic wouldn't be, it's like something that would induce a sort of amnesia by preventing a strengthening of the connection of that traumatic experience, and you're less likely to be impacted by it or remember it. Um, because our brain has this ability to really want to remember negative things, strengthens that very easily. But if I wanted to strengthen more subtle things, I need to establish the right patterns and behaviors and habits in my life. And that's going to change my chemistry, release the right factors that also not just grow new neurons, strengthen learning and memory and connections. It's also going to protect your brain from stress-related damage. In The Art of Stress-Free Living, one of my books, I talk about how stress and inflammation are two silent killers of our generation. It's not that either is bad. They're both important. They're both needed. You need inflammatory processes for healing, for example. You need stress. Without stress pathways, you wouldn't get anything done. But it's about balance, and oftentimes we overdo it to the point where we start to break down. And that's what I teach in Zen Brain Academy, is how to have that kind of yin yang balance approach to develop a Zen brain that will give you superpowers, that will give you the ability to have more longevity, more productivity while sacrificing yourself. Movement is one of the pillars in Zen brain for a reason, but it's not just that I spend the whole day seated and then I go and work out. What is much more powerful, I'm not saying stop working out, because cardiovascular fitness, being strong, the strength of your bones, especially as you age, is very important. And you may enjoy it as well. But you must integrate movement throughout the day in a cyclical approach that I call my quantum model to brain health in Zen Brain Academy. So, evidence number one here is movement integrated learning. So, what does that mean? How does it improve academic achievement? And these are just to explain these real quick, the effect size. Anything over zero point 0.8 is very significant. So these were significant effects that they saw when you had regular movement breaks, even 5-minute breaks sprinkled in a Pomodoro style throughout the day. Ideally, I've talked about this before, where you want to go no longer than 30 minutes. Ideally, that's the ideal. Think of like a TED Talk. You go 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break for the 30 minutes. If you go an hour, you should have a 10-minute break. If you go an hour and a half, you should have a 15-minute break within the hour and a half. Those are the ideals, and ideally you don't want to go longer than 90 minutes. The reason being is because your brain goes through certain cycles of rising productivity and then that wanes. If I keep pushing during the waning period, I'm going to be less effective, less productive. I'm going to start to burn out and break down and increase and ramp up stress and fatigue, etc. So avoid going longer than 90 minutes. So that would be the ideal, that 5-minute break within a 30-minute time window. But let's just jump back in here. And so what this really means is that, how did academic outcomes improve? It would be like a C student becoming a B plus student if movement were integrated. A child or an even adolescent or whatever level you're at, we're not really designed to be seated learning without movement. School ideally should be immersed in nature. Think of like a setting in the past, maybe, where a teacher would be seated by a tree and the students would be around the teacher, and the teacher would be expounding on certain concepts and ideas and whatever, and the kids would get to move around and explore and use their physicality. And movement was really a part of what we are. But in the digital age, we move less. And this allows students to not just improve academic outcomes to score better, but also to stay focused for longer. It improves their ability to focus. And that's why TED Talks, again, are around 20 minutes. Because once you get past 20 minutes, the brain's ability to focus starts to wane. So 5-minute activity breaks improve performance in a significant way. And so it could be like a student that normally gets a 75 now getting 85s, and occasional A, etc. It's that level of improvement, and it improves processing speed, attention, academic performance, other measures. Sitting-based learning is not what our brain is designed for. In addition, exercise, we talked about the hippocampus, leads to a 1 to 2% increase in age-related shrinkage. Imagine if you could reverse brain aging by 1 to 2 years. Wouldn't you want to do that? Then movement does this for you. BDNF is one of the key mediating molecules. I am sure there are others that were not focused in this proceedings from the National Academy of Sciences article. So directly counters also sedentary induced shrinkage. So if I'm kind of reversing aging, I'm countering what would normally happen if I were not to do anything. And think of like this sedentary induced brain shrinkage as somebody who retires and now they're very sedentary. They don't really do much. Maybe they're in front of the TV, and they do a lot of passive activities. That is leading to a greater deterioration and more likely leading to one outcome, which is earlier death. So the hippocampus is enhanced. Think of the hippocampus as your filing system. What happens if you lose your hippocampus? Your memory for things, you start to forget, you become a lot more forgetful. If you lesion the hippocampus, if you're a patient in a room and I come in, I say, you recognize me because maybe you knew me from before the lesion. And you say, Dr. Ramos, how are you? And we have a conversation for 5, 10 minutes. I leave. I forgot my keys. I come back 10 minutes later. You don't remember that I was there. That's the power of the hippocampus converting present experience into long-term storage that you're then able to remember and use in the present. Neuroplasticity as well. You know, the idea of like you don't use it, you lose it. That's the idea with neuroplasticity. You don't use a certain connection in the brain, it starts to weaken. You don't move it, you lose it. And here the key is that what you don't want is repetitive movement. Running on a treadmill, pumping iron just repetitively, the same daily routines is that what I call that Groundhog Day style of living that we have in the digital age, where we kind of repeat the same thing over and over and over again. This leads to deterioration of your brain. Your brain needs variety. It still will have cardiovascular health benefits, but it doesn't have that holistic effect of influencing your brain. What does? Novel movements. Think of learning a new dance. So maybe integrating, instead of going to just the gym, integrating other practices, learning a new sport, even if it's something simple like a pickleball, or let's say, learning martial arts. I don't care what age it is. Go to a class, go take some classes, go learn. Take a dance class with your partner, yoga, because in all of these, you're learning new things. You're kind of leveling up and you learn new sequences and how to do a new pose or how to do a new dance move. And it has superior effects on leading to growth of gray matter. What gray matter means, the area of your brain that has nerve cells. It's better than repetitive fitness. It's the winner. Learn new movement patterns far better than repetitive exercise. So we have a crisis in the digital age. Exercise doesn't undo sitting damage. You have to reduce sedentary time. Break up the seated period. After I'm done recording this, I'm going to move. If I'm going to go back seated to do some other work, I will move in between. I'm going to do something to take care of myself, whether it's breathing, stretching, twisting, moving, going outside and going for a walk, being maybe in contact with nature, mindfulness, etc. We can integrate movement with other practices to make it more effective, like mindful walking, for example, or mindful eating, or walking and also breathing in a specific way. All these things we teach in Zen Brain Academy. We spend too many hours seated. It increases the risk of brain shrinkage, cognitive decline, dementia, or Alzheimer's, and even exercise at the gym will not reverse this. You will still have this kind of persistent effects. So 5 ways in which you can improve movement rewires your brain. We talked about BDNF, 2 to 3 times the release in its increases. Its release is increased, I should say, by exercise. It creates a neural pathway. We talked about a lot of the benefits of BDNF. I'm sure there's other factors and other chemicals that are getting fine-tuned. For example, you practice meditation. Mindfulness is fine-tuning chemistry for attention, for focus, for being present. So whenever we do things, it is rewiring us. It's changing us. It's adapting us. And we want the best adaptation, the best neuroplasticity possible in our body. It leads to more neurons in key areas for learning and memory. Synaptic connectivity for better thinking. And I showed you the measures of this in the classroom. Angiogenesis as well. So new blood vessels, improving delivery. In a future video that I'm going to be doing, and I teach this also in ZenBrain Academy, there is a way in which you can breathe and a way in which we are breathing that gets in the way of this process, increasing mental fatigue, decreasing detox of the brain, leading to accumulation of toxins and proteins that correlate with cognitive decline, with inflammation, with acidification of the brain, with stress, with Alzheimer's disease, etc., and how you can breathe in a way that flushes that out. Start thinking about that now if you're young, and don't wait until it's too late. You want a future that's powerful, productive in the digital age. You want to dominate this AI-powered world? Join ZenBrain Academy and start taking care of yourself and invest in your brain. And of course, this also reduces inflammation, which is one of the triggers for a myriad of conditions, including this cognitive decline and dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So remember, if you focus on more movement, you're able, especially new novel movement, that forces your brain to adapt, to learn new sequences. It helps your brain to thrive, to grow. And this can counter a lot of the problems that we often have in the digital age. Why are things correlated with aging? Because we've been doing things that are hurting us for years upon years upon years. If you found value in this video, please subscribe, like, and share it with somebody who will benefit. We put out one video a week right now. Really important videos. If you missed any of the previous videos, they are a goldmine. Please check them out. Go back and start listening to them while you're working out or doing something or you're going for a walk. They really will make a huge impact in your life. Leave a comment. If you have any questions, I'll create a video specifically for your question as well. And consider joining ZenBrain Academy for free, or go to the link in the description. I have a free newsletter, the ZenBrain Blueprint. Put out an article every Monday, jam-packed with value. Check it out. All right. Until next time, I'll see you next week. Take care. Stay Zen.